We look at Mexican lager as a style. I think what we mostly see is the industrial versions that come out of Mexico. You know, the Modelos, the Coronas, the Ducati, Pacifico. These are all forms of Mexican lager. They all share some commonalities. They're fairly light in nature. Some of them have a little bit more of a caramel malt or caramel element to them with just a little bit of bitterness. All of them are brewed with corn. And then one thing that really holds them together is that they have a sweetness that's really cut by the acidity. Mexican lager has a rich history similar to Japanese lager or some of these international style lagers that have really had a lot of commonplace with Germany. When Mexico wanted to be established as a brewing nation, they brought in over brewing equipment and brewmasters from Germany, and they wanted to take their stab at what we know as the more German-inspired lagers. What they did, though, is they worked with local terroir. They realized they had great corn available, some of the malt more lent to more caramel flavors, a little bit more rich. And then really, I think you saw the evolution of them working with the land and the food, that you had this, created this beer that was bright in acidity, the sweetness of the corn, fairly low bitterness, but then also with those things that really complement the food, the cuisine of Mexico. You know, this has then now evolved to more of an industrial interpretations, but you can see what the soul of the beer once was. The inspiration really started a little over a decade ago. I was doing these surf trips down to Mexico. During the time I was getting into really fresh Modelos, Pacificos, and this is as the modern craft lager movement was taking off. We were brewing a bunch of lagers, and I was like, man, when these interpretations are fresh, they're actually pretty exciting. And what if we went back to the source and we looked at these industrial interpretations, which are pretty good, and what if we went back to where they used to be? And what if we put a little more emphasis on really high quality corn and really flavorful malt and really leaned into some of the acidity? And what if we use a little bit more German hops? And then what we came to find is what we have today, which is pFriem Mexican lager. Like a lot of our beers at pFriem, you know, we're looking at some of these historical roots, looking at some of the industrial interpretations, and then we're now making something that's unique and that our palates have guided us on. We've leaned in the recent years a little bit more to the Vienna malt and some of the more richer attributes that we think came from the history, then balancing those with like really nice acidity and then like just enough bitterness and just enough hop flavor to create something that's really thirst quenching, but rich, and then obviously awesome with food. Over the years of doing surf trips down to Mexico, you go to different parts of the country and you get the opportunity to drop in to different regional flavors of Mexican lagers. One that was captivating in recent years was going down to the southern part of Mexico where everyone drank Victoria. It's much more caramely and has quite a bit more bitterness. Man, we would surf these big sessions, be out there hammering all day. We'd come back and we'd crush what looked like fairly red in color, malty, but like the acidity was so nice and it cut through and it was so quenching and so refreshing. And I think as Mexican lager at pFriem has evolved, we leaned into some of those attributes. Once again, not trying to be Victoria, but we like a little bit more of those caramel notes with that big acidity and then really ripping off those corn flavors. Corn is a very important part of making Mexican lager, in my opinion. It really is one of the things that, in the world of international lagers, using different adjuncts, corn is a beautiful one. It's sweeter and richer than rice is, more complex, where rice goes more gentle and nuanced. Corn itself can give off a little bit more round, fuller, sweeter flavors, which then in a beer like Mexican lager, you can really rip off them with some of the sweeter caramel malts, really, really beautiful Pilsner malt. And then what that allows you to do is really bring the pH low, and you have this sweet but sour, just enough bitterness. It would be really hard to do without having corn as being a major player there. Mexican lager offers so many great drinking opportunities, with it being a little bit lower in alcohol and also very easy on the palate. Finds great time after activity, early evening, hanging out with friends, barbecuing, of course, Mexican dish, anything works great. And this is a beer that can be as complex as nuanced if you want to get into it, or you can drink them and don't worry about it and just enjoy the experience, enjoy your time with your friends. To lime or not to lime is a very important question for all Mexican lagers. I get asked that quite a bit. I think the beauty of lime in an industrial Mexican lager is typically there's some oxidation there. You have clear glass, a lot of times they're coming in, and there is a base acidity into the beer, and you really brighten it up by adding a little lime into it. In pFriem Mexican lager, if you're gonna lime or not to lime, the beer's made to drink just as it is, but if you're gonna put a little lime in it, that's totally fine. You can enjoy it that way as well. The one thing I ask though, leave the fruit out of the glass. You do not want to take that clunky piece of fruit, you put it into the beer, it nucleates, it pulps everywhere, and now you've destroyed something that was beautiful. So lime as you will, but keep the fruit out of the glass.